All right, so welcome everyone to this info session and Q&A on fundraising during a pandemic. I think for many of us, this is our first pandemic of this scale for sure. And I think in my life, this is unprecedented, and we're all orienting to this new reality. So I wanted to put together some slides and go through how I'm thinking about it. You know, I talk to entrepreneurs and investors on a regular basis, and so I'll share some of what I'm learning, and then we can do a Q&A. And I also want to hear what everybody else thinks, what your insights are, what you're hearing from investors, what you're hearing from your fellow entrepreneurs. So please raise your hand. I think that's possible here. If you have a question or you have something to say, raise your hand. I'm going to unmute just to make sure we can do that. Can somebody tell me if you see a raise your hand button?
Let's see.
Option.
Yeah, I do.
See one? Okay, so we can use that. Oh yeah, Kevin raised his hand there. I see that. So cool. Okay. So just raise your hand if you have something to say, and I'll unmute you, and then we can make this a Q&A. Great. So let's dive in here. So in thinking about this, I'm going to take 7 angles on what's going on globally right now. The first one is the crisis and the opportunity, and the relationship between those two things. The second is this concept of default dead versus default alive, and I'll explain what that is. The third is addressing different types of investors and how they might be reacting differently to what's going on. The fourth is an issue of time scale and looking at the different time scales of how to think about this in the short term, in the medium term, in the long term. Then fifth is what are the opportunities that are being presented to us as founders? Next, what are some of the limitations that we now have to deal with? And then lastly, this concept of storytelling. So just dive in here. If I can do this bullet by bullet. So the first one is crisis and opportunity. You know, I was gonna pull out this thing that I'm sure all of us have heard, that in Chinese, the character for crisis and the character for opportunity are the same character. Well, it turns out that isn't true. I researched it. In Chinese, crisis is defined as danger at a point of juncture. So we're at a point of juncture now, and new things are being created, new possibilities are opening up that were previously not available, and old possibilities that were available are closing down. Winston Churchill has a quote that I like, which is never let a good crisis go to waste. And for me, that's a recognition of the fact that there is, in every crisis, a new playing field and a new collection of opportunities that we can ignore, or we can harvest, we can orient towards. And one of the best analyses I saw is Brad Felt sent out a note earlier this week saying that we're actually dealing with 3 crises in one right now. We're dealing with a health crisis that's severely impacting the healthcare system and turning that on its head. We're dealing with a financial crisis that is ongoing and that we're all aware of, that in certain industries are being decimated. I've got a friend who owns a travel company, and they're toast because of this. And there's many other companies that are reeling. The whole financial system is reeling. And then lastly, we have a mental health crisis of how are we all dealing with this, and how are we living our lives in this new reality where the thing we want to do most is be with each other, look into each other's eyes, hold each other, and we can't do that. I'm gonna let a few more people into call here. Welcome, new people. Yeah, so we've got 3 crises in one: a health crisis, a financial crisis, and a mental health crisis. and we're going to have to deal with them all at once. And they might have different durations, different severities. So it really is an unprecedented time. I also read, I think, in order to be alive, to have been alive during the last pandemic of this magnitude in 1918, you'd have to be 111 years old, and there's only something like 150 people on the earth that are that old. So we're facing a new landscape of uncertain duration. And what that means is that things that were a good idea or potentially a good investment 4 or 5 or 6 weeks ago might not be anymore. And things that were bad investments and bad ideas 6 weeks ago might now be good investments and good ideas. So I think as entrepreneurs, the quicker we realize the magnitude of this shift and that there really is a new playing field, the faster and better we can orient towards it. So that's the first bit on crisis and opportunities. Anybody have anything they want to add to that? You raise your hand, or just, yeah, raise your hand if you have something to add, otherwise I'll move on. Okay, I'm gonna move on. So the next thing I wanted to talk about is default dead versus default alive. So this is an idea that comes from Paul Graham at Y Combinator. And the idea is that for every startup, you're either default dead or you're default alive, and you better know which you are. Default dead means if you don't get a cash injection, you're not going to be able to continue operations. Default alive means without a cash injection, you can still continue operations. And it's a critical thing for every entrepreneur to know. I'm going to admit some more people to the call here. It's critical for every entrepreneur to know whether you are default dead or default alive. If you can be default alive right now, it's best to do that. It's best to trim expenses, double down on your most important clients, be default alive so you don't need a cash injection. Because of what's going on, cash injections have become more uncertain. If you can hibernate for a bit, that's kind of like a lower grade level of default alive. If you can put people on half salaries or third salaries, or give people extra vacation and hibernate for 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, that's probably a good thing to do as well, depending on your industry. Not all industries, obviously. Some people are going to experience an explosion of business. So yeah, cut expenses. And then if you're default dead, so default alive or hibernate are kind of the default alive options. But if you're default dead, if you need a cash injection to stay afloat, to keep your operation running, well then my advice is get to work raising money right now. Really double down on getting that process going. Does anybody have anything to say about default dead versus default alive? Please raise your hand. Share your experience and I'll bring you in now. Otherwise, I'm going to move on. Okay, so then next is the different types of investors that we are all dealing with. We've got angel investors, we've got family offices, and we've got venture investors. And from what I'm hearing, each of those groups are reacting a little differently to what's going on. We've also got investors that are remote only, like they're actually pursuing as a strategy investing in entrepreneurs without doing face-to-face meetings. And then there's other investors that are only investing in people if they do face-to-face meetings. So that's a distinction to have right now, is there are people out there who advertise that they do most of their investing or all of their investing just over Zoom. And you can find them and get meetings, expand your network and reach those people. And then there's people that say, I have to do face-to-face meetings. And so for those, it's probably a different strategy right now of doing the first meeting on Zoom and lining everything up so that maybe in a month or 2 months or 3 months, when we can do in-person meetings again, you have that meeting booked and you can go meet that person. And then there's also government investors. Like I've been looking at what the SBA is offering small businesses right now. There's disaster loans and forgivable loans. There's payroll loans. So the government is stepping in and putting money into companies. So we can include the government as an investor. Now for angels, I believe, and from what I'm hearing, like many angels are currently in a panic mode. Like they've just lost a lot of money that they had invested in the market, and they're wondering what to do and how to orient. So for those people in panic, I think it's a terrible time to fundraise. They're probably not going to answer phone calls or emails. They're probably going to cancel meetings. But I'm also hearing that some investors are saying, well, actually, this is a great time to invest because everybody who's in panic mode is out of the market and there's deals to be had. There's lower valuations. There's less investors going after given deals. So some people are in panic. Some people are looking for deals. I don't think it's all doom and gloom. And I do think that within 4 weeks, 8 weeks, something like that, the panic is going to subside as we orient to this new normal. And so for me, thinking about working with my clients and helping investors raise money, I'm thinking, okay, what can we do now to prepare for that time in 4 weeks when angels are going to start coming back online, or 6 weeks. Then with VCs, what I'm hearing is that a lot of VCs have drawn back currently right now and are supporting their portfolio companies, a lot of whom are going through painful reorganizations, layoffs. And so they're trying to keep their current investments afloat. And I think that is going to occupy a lot of VCs for the next, again, like 6 to 8 to 12 weeks. But then I'm also hearing that the same thing with angels is that there's lots of VCs that are looking for deals, that are still doing meetings, that realize they can probably get better valuations right now, and that realize that in crisis there is opportunity, and with a reorientation of the market, there is new things available, like new investments potentially available, new returns available that weren't previously available to them. And then family offices, I think I would treat similar to angels. It seems like many are currently in panic, and I don't actually have any firsthand from family offices yet. So if anybody has some, please put up your hand and I'll pipe you in and you can let everybody know what you're hearing. Okay, so now let's talk about the time scale. I've had a lot of entrepreneurs in the last couple of weeks say to me, isn't this the worst time to raise money? Like, isn't this a terrible time to raise money? And as I've sat with that question and thought about it, one thing I keep coming back to is that when investors are putting money into companies, they're not taking a 3-month view, they're not taking a 6-month, a 12-month, an 18-month, 24-month view. The average return on an angel investment, I think, is 7 years. And so these investors are taking a long view. If they're relatively sophisticated, they're entering into this knowing I'm investing this money and I'm going to know whether it was a good investment 5 to 10 years from now. So taking that long view, I don't necessarily think this is a terrible time to be investing money or to be raising money. I think it's important for us as entrepreneurs to tell a story that takes the long view and that tells the story of what's going to happen in the world and to our opportunity that we're going after and for our company as this pandemic unfolds and as new things, shift and the world returns back to normal, but different. So I do think that taking the long view, there's a lot of opportunities that are going to be created out of this situation. And I guess I wanted to put this question to the group on the call. Does it make sense to stop investing now? Like if you're a VC investor, if you're an angel investor, a family office, we have a hand raised here. I'm gonna unmute Kevin. Kevin.
Hey, Will, thank you very much. Yeah, I think you're
Kevin,
exactly right.
Kevin, can you introduce yourself just very quickly? What you do and where you're calling from?
Sure. My name is Kevin Neal. I'm the CEO of a technology startup company called P3ID Technologies. We're in the document imaging cloud services space. I agree with you, Will, that taking the long view is critically important for an investor. And in our conversations, investors like the moonshot, they like the money, but I would definitely suggest that to my fellow entrepreneurs, focus on a small project that's well defined and tangible in the short term. That can contribute to the long view vision. But quick wins and something very practical that maybe isn't a moonshot right now, but that can be part of the overall big picture is critically important. So that's what I found successful in the last couple of weeks in our conversations, at least. So I wanted to contribute that to the group. So
great. Thank you, Kevin. Yeah, and I've been saying, for fundraising conversations, maybe the target for the raise that you're going after has gone down. Instead of raising 2 million, maybe it's 500K now, making it a smaller, more discrete project. Definitely been having that conversation quite a bit. I have another hand raised. Alex, unmute you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Alex Libera. I'm the CEO and co-founder of ManyBuild Inc. And we aim to be the most trusted construction platform in the world. Kind of following up with what the previous guy was saying, we are kind of focusing right now on, because I feel like a lot of questions that would come up if we try to raise right now would be, what are we doing right now to generate revenue? And from the construction standpoint, we've definitely seen a kind of a slowdown, even though it's been considered an essential industry here in Colorado. Other states like New York, under Governor Cuomo, he's basically said construction is an essential industry and has gone on full lockdown. So it's really made me have to think about how do we provide value to our users in order to continue to justify a monthly subscription without necessarily always having to have jobs lined up for them. So it's really coming up with maybe some support services, something that can help them process invoices as well as estimates. And it turns into somewhat of a microservice that we can continue to sell because, regardless of whether we can find them work or not, they would be able to use that software or that piece of the software while we kind of regain our footing and control of kind of all the leads that have been right now temporarily put on hold.
Yeah, and Alex, are you default dead or default alive right now?
Default, what do you mean?
Like, are you making enough revenue to cover your expenses, or do you guys need to raise?
No, right now, since we've kept it so bootstrapped, our only real expense is our office space, and then paying our programmers kind of on a per bounty basis of what they complete. And we've basically told them we need to hold off on paying them, and they've continued to work without any promise of payment in the future while things settle. Everybody's been very understanding.
Nice, cool. So you're default alive, it sounds like. Well done.
Yes.
Peter, I'm going to unmute you.
Sure. So
thank you, Alex.
My dad, he invested in real estate.
Peter, can you?
Sorry. Let me start. I'm founder and CEO of Hatch Coding. We're a Toronto-based company that has an online software that teaches kids how to read and write code. So we've actually done really well over the last 3 weeks as all the parents have panicked and said, what can I have my kids do all day? So my dad built a real estate portfolio by investing in resource towns when they were completely decimated. And he just said, listen, at some point in time, and this is starting in like 1988, right? So it's been a while. And he just said, listen, if I can just hold on for like 6 to 12 months, coal's going to come back, or oil's going to come back, or potash is going to come back, and then I'm going to have these awesome deals. So your original question is like, is this a good time to be investing or not? And if I was my dad, but not in real estate, in startups instead, I would say this is like a phenomenal time to invest, right? There's, like Uber and Airbnb came out of the financial crisis, right? Like if you're building an awesome company and you're going to offer an amazing deal, like anybody who has cash that's kind of my mindset, because that's what my dad did. He invested when things were shit, and he just held on for 6 to 12 months. And that's the conversation I would have with investors is like, listen, if you have cash and you're willing to hold on for 6 to 12 months, if I was pitching Hatch, we have such a phenomenally amazing product that does this thing that we really need, because we need 10 extra software engineers in the next 10 years. You're just going to get a great deal with me. So the answer to your original question is, I actually think it's a good time for investors to be investing right now. I would say only 1 out of 10 investors have money, right? Because the other 9 out of 10 are too panicked. But if you're an investor and you have money, it's a great time to invest.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Thanks,
my take.
Peter. Yeah. And Peter, I thought about you a lot over the past month, because we talked probably a month ago before all this happened. And you were saying we might have these contracts coming in. We're waiting for them to land. We might have to raise money. And then a few weeks later, after the pandemic had hit, you're saying like, we're hiring 6 people. Everything's going online.
Yeah. So, I happened to get lucky. All the corporate stuff died, right? Like everything, I went from like a pipeline to 0, but the business consumer family stuff has done well. And now I'm just trying to like move the stuff together. So we have a call on Monday. I'll give you the update. Don't want to waste too much of the time here.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Great. So if anybody else has something to pipe in, please raise your hand and I'll bring you in. Otherwise, I'm going to move on here.
Hey, Will, it's Sheldon. I don't know how to raise my hand, but if you don't mind.
Yeah, go for it, Sheldon.
Yeah, so my name is Sheldon. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Clear Forward, and I'm in the clear aligner space. And so we've had some interesting days and weeks behind us with virtually every dental and orthodontic practice on the planet being closed. And so in order to, in our efforts to stay default alive, what we've done is we've kind of pivoted to looking at opportunities in Asia. And because our model is remote, we're able to work with labs in China, of all places, that are on the other side of this whole pandemic, of course, where it started. And so they're whatever 8, 10, 12 weeks ahead of us in this process. So I really like the concept, the short view versus the long view. And I like what Kevin said, to focus on something that you can go all in on the really short term, to kind of keep things alive, make all the necessary adjustments with a longer view in mind.
That's really cool. It's like by going to Asia, you're skipping ahead 12 weeks in time.
Yeah. And likewise the Middle East. And so again, fortunate we have a global footprint, and fortunate to be a virtual and remote services oriented company. We have a lot of flexibility in that sense.
Yeah. Yeah, great. Thank you, Sheldon. Diana, do you have something?
Yeah, thanks. My name is Diana. I'm out of Toronto. My company has been around since 2012. We do user experience research primarily, started as pure services and now shifting to software. Before COVID, basically, we had a plan to be moving in the direction of a B2B SaaS model. Now that has been accelerated, and we're getting a little bit of traction in conversations to conduct more research online. My question, I guess, is kind of around, how do you identify an angel or a VC who's looking for a deal these days, and also for looking at, startup type, like, early stage companies? Yeah, well, I think what I always, my answer to that question, and I'd love to throw this out to the group after if anybody has something to say, but my answer is always to make a list of investors that are aligned with what you're trying to do with your company. So the kind of money, like whether it's angel money or VC money, and people that want what you want and want to go on the kind of ride that you're creating with your company. And then it's making a really long list of those people. I recommend 200 people on the list. And then it's reaching out to them, and you'll know pretty fast who are the people that are interested and want to do a call, and who are the people who are ignoring and are in panic mode right now, or they're doing something else. So it really is a numbers game for me with fundraising. And if you can get 200 people that are really well chosen and targeted into your funnel,
then it just makes everything so much easier. We have Mohammed. I'm going to unmute you. Mohammed, are you there? No. Okay, I'm gonna.
Can I,
Oh, yep.
this is Charles.
Charles.
Yeah, I don't see a raise the hand button on my screen. So I think I'll just jump in.
Yep.
I'm Charles Yap, CEO and co-founder of Clean Robotics. We make a robot that uses AI, computer vision, and sensors to detect waste as you throw it away, and separates landfill from recycling from compost 300% more accurately than the public. We're targeting public places, airports, convention centers, arenas, things like that. One of the things that I think I'm having trouble with, so we have a long list of potential investors, and we're kind of working our way through it. But there's a lot of noise, especially once you start doing research on social media. I think a lot of VCs and early stage investors are, virtue signaling that they're open for business, but in reality they're not, or they're rediverting a lot of their I guess what would have been dry powder into the existing portfolio companies, as you mentioned earlier. Do you have any tips, because this is something that I'm struggling with as I'm working through my list, on sifting out people that are actually open for business for new investments versus those that are just saying they are, but in reality aren't actually considering new investments? Because there's a whole lot of nonsense and noise, and I'm having a difficult time finding expedient ways of clearing out the chafe in our funnel.
Yeah, good question. I guess my mind goes to three answers on that. The first answer would be wait a week or two, because I really do feel that last week was full on panic mode. This week is slightly less full on panic mode. And I think in a few weeks that panic is gonna die down, just because as humans, we get used to what's happening, and we're gonna, as a culture, I can already kind of feel it in the group field, get used to this new reality. So I think the first thing would be wait a few weeks. I think somebody said earlier, like, spend your time on another discrete project, or prepare your raise, like build out your funnel, do more research, like spend 8 or 10 hours researching and building out your investor funnel so that it's really robust in 2 or 3 weeks time. And then the other one would be talk to CEOs, like other CEOs, reach out to other CEOs. I think other funded CEOs are an amazing source of information about what's going on with their investors and the investor community in general. So we've got 29 CEOs on this call. If anybody wants to join the Get Funded community and get into there, we can use this community as a way to communicate and talk to each other. And then the last thing I think would be just ask investors. If they're ignoring, probably they're in panic mode. But if they're in communication, you can say, hey, are you investing right now? Or how are you thinking about your investing right now, given what's going on? So those would be my quick points on that.
Good tips. Thank you.
Yeah, welcome. Okay, so I'm going to move through some more slides here. So we're talking about taking the long view. Does it make sense to stop investing now? And there was one VC that said this: you fall for the company and its vision. That requires a pretty positive frame of mind, and that's a frame of mind that it might be hard to hold right now. So if everything is doom and gloom in someone's life because someone that they care about is sick, or there's somebody in the healthcare industry who's in their family, it might just be hard for them to see the positivity in anything right now. So it may take some weeks for that to fade. And then people that are short-sighted versus people that are long-sighted, I would say bring up the long game and the long view in conversations with investors, and find out who's long-sighted, and those are the people that are more likely to be able to weather this storm without freaking out. And then, of course, what are the long-term opportunities of this current situation? Like, another way to think about that is, where can capital help the most right now? Maybe it's testing, or medical supplies, or telemedicine, or at-home meditation, or a list of a list of many things that capital could help us with as we go through these three crises simultaneously. So what are some of the opportunities? Here's some that I see. I've been reading about remote-only investors. So everybody on the call can Google that and get some names of people that have been interviewed on TechCrunch recently saying that they don't do face-to-face meetings. They like to invest remotely only. So those would be good people to keep busy right now. As we talked about, there's massive market shifts happening. Education is going online. Health and wellness is going online. Music is trying to go online. Travel is going to have to figure out what it's going to do with itself. Incumbents on their knees. I'm just going to mute somebody here. Yeah, so I mean, this is really an interesting thing to realize, is that there's a lot of incumbents, big companies that are currently facing major challenges of shutting down operations, especially in the hospitality space, in the travel space. And so this creates a kind of a once in a generation opportunity for startups in that space to come in and take that market share from these big incumbents that are currently on their knees. So like Peter's company could be an example of that these education companies are dealing with, how are we going to make payroll? How are we going to keep operating? And he's there to swoop in. So that's definitely happening. Also, other startups are on the rocks. So your competitors might be really feeling this hard. They might be panicking. They might decide to shut down. It's a lot of change all at once for the incumbents and the other startups in nearly every space. Another opportunity is investors are looking for deals because they realize there's less demand right now. There's investors that are panicking, and so some people realize, well, I can invest in good company at half the valuation that I would have been able to 6 weeks ago. Another opportunity I see is that this presents time. Like we all, if we want to take it, maybe not all of us, but some of us have time on our hands now. And we have time to hone our skills, hone our fundraising skills, prepare for a summer fundraise potentially. Really like nail the preparation section of fundraising, which I believe is the most important part of the whole thing. If you enter into a fundraise with a really tight funnel, really beautifully done materials, a really tight story, and a really tight list of intros, it's going to be so much easier for you. So now could be a great time to work on all of that and get that all really tight, so that when things do open up, people's panic subsides, you can go out there and execute your raise efficiently and quickly. And then lastly, the stimulus. You know, there's money flowing. It's available. So each of us should check that out and see if that's going to help us where we're at. And then limitations. The first one is it's potentially harder now for us as entrepreneurs and for us to fundraise. I think definitely this week it's harder to fundraise now than it was 6 weeks ago. I think less people are going to succeed. And so who are those people going to be? If it's going to be us on this call, we may need to hustle a little harder, bring in some resources or help that we didn't have previously. The strong are going to prevail as always, and entrepreneurs are going to do what we always do, get scrappy and figure out ways to do it. But I do think there will be a lot of startups that don't succeed. Fundraising will take longer, so I think that's a good reason to start now. Remote first meetings are great, but then what? We may have to do a great first meeting, a great second meeting over Zoom, and then wait a month to go seal the deal in person. I do think round size and terms are going to shrink. I'm hearing that they're already shrinking. And then less demand from investors potentially, and maybe less supply of startups. So there's just a new landscape there. And I think this is one of my last slides. So I wanted to spend a few minutes on storytelling, and then we'll do a Q&A. So I believe fundraising, it's a lot about storytelling. Investors fall in love with the story. Often the story is all they can repeat to the other partners in the firm, or to their family and friends, or their wife or husband, if they're angels. So I think all of us would be well served to take a step back and ask ourselves, what is the story that we can tell right now that includes COVID? Again, to Peter's company, online education and coding for kids, there's a real story there around, we don't know how long this is going to last, and we're going to help prepare this generation for what's coming next. And as COVID stretches out, like, we are going to become more and more important and more relevant. With travel, I talked to a travel company last week, and he's talking about a new model of travel. It's more one-on-one, where you go somewhere and meet a digital nomad that lives there. And so the story there might be that, well, travel is going to recover, but it's never going to be the same. There's not going to be group tourism. There's not going to be these huge tours. It's going to be more personal and more distributed as the world opens up. And that's what we do. And so this is a great time to invest in our company. So what is the story that includes COVID-19? And maybe there is one and maybe there isn't. But if there is, let's find it. The next point is a silly one but I wanted to include it. An investor was interviewed, and she said, I judge people on how they appear on video, how organized is their office. I'm trying to pick up all the cues that I would get in person over video. So that had me see, okay, there's a new playing field in doing video meetings. Like, how do we do really good video meetings? I'm just going to admit someone else into the call here. Welcome, Don. I'm muting everybody. And then the last one about storytelling is, what is the story that you tell yourself? Like, what is the story that each of us is going to tell ourselves about what's going on? Is it's impossible to raise right now? Is it now is a once in a lifetime opportunity? Is it something else? I think that they're all true. That if we believe it's impossible right now, then it is. If we believe that it's a once in a lifetime opportunity, then it is. And so each of us can choose the story we tell ourselves. And my experience in life has been that story is usually true, that usually I will live into that story, whether it's positive or negative. So I wanted to mention, before we get to the Q&A here, that I am launching a group program called Fundraising Mastery. It's a 3-month program to help founders orient to this new reality and get really good at raising money in this environment, and really in any environment. And so if you want to know more about that, you can go to foundersgetfunded.com/mastery, and we'll get you all the info you need. If you want to do a call with me, I'm happy to speak with any founder who wants to up their game raising money. Fundraising Mastery is going to be an awesome program. I'm really excited about it, and we have a few spots left. And then my email is will@foundersgetfunded.com. So if you have any questions or you need anything, please email me there, and either me or somebody on my team will get back to you. So with that, I would love to do some questions, some Q&A. Does anybody have a question or anything they'd like to share? I'm going to stop the screen share. Maybe we can get some faces on the screen here. I see we've got Wayne. We can see you. There's Chris. There's Don. There's Dan, Dana, Charles. Hey, everybody. So yeah, questions, comments? Anybody?
Hi there, Will.
Hi, who's that?
Can you hear me?
Yes, Wayne. Hi, Wayne.
I probably have got the worst backdrop of all, because I'm down under. I'm not right down under, but I'm in Australia, and I didn't quite make the meeting. I haven't been too well, but the thing is, if I can, my story is, I'll make it brief. I'm the CEO developer of a company called Pinup Proprietary Limited. We developed a collaboration website 5 years ago from a previous site that I owned, put a team together, and we did that as a long journey. And now today, the point is we are at a stage, and particularly through the COVID situation, that our business has increased up to 500% in the last few weeks. Now, there's parts of this. The main feature of our product is that because it is a corkboard sticky note platform, and the types of people that are using this around the globe is mainly education and other. Now we're at 2 points because
Wayne,
look,
Wayne, sorry to interrupt. I want to give everybody a chance to speak, and we don't have that much time left. So if you could just be crisp with your question.
Okay. Well, the point is we're at the stage with this website business that we had that I'm either going to look at develop or dispose of. That's where I'm at. The opportunities, I've been in the business 20 years, and I don't think I've seen a great opportunity. I'm not selling it up, but pinup.com is commonly used through schools and otherwise. But the thing is, I'm going to look for some fundraising or possibly disposing of it.
Got it. How much are you looking to raise?
I want to raise about 100,000 to add to the database, build it up to handle the influx, and we've got some exciting, revolutionary uses of this particular site. It's easy to use, and it doesn't get people lost. But the feedback, if you go by the feedback, it's great.
Yeah, cool, Wayne. So Wayne, what I'd suggest is let's connect after this call, and we can talk about putting your raise together.
Okay. Sorry about that. I know it was a very ugly background, but I'm just sitting up because, as I say, it's been a long night for me. But anyway, and I thank you to be here, and I thank you for listening.
Thank you, Wayne. I want to give others a chance to pipe in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hello, Will.
Yeah, is that Sammy?
Yes, how are you doing?
Hi, good, thank you. How are you?
I'm very good. So my name is Sammy. I'm the CEO and the co-founder of GIL, G-I-L, where GIL is developing a VR platform for teaching spoken Arabic and to highlight the 360 content videos interactive using the voice recognition from the Arabic world. Especially in the time of Corona now, we are a good solution to market it now for people staying at home and looking to explore another language and another culture from the Arabic world. So I did fundraising using your material, your advices before, and we closed the VC from Canada who are really excited about us, but now we are looking to fundraise again. To add more features and to enhance our platform and to actually build up the application. We need now the app to be working on cardboards so people can reach us on cardboards, which is the most achievable device to have. So I was asking you in the chat how our ask should change now, and especially for such a solution which is depending on e-learning and virtual reality platform. How should our ask be different from before, where we are looking to raise 150K? Should we stick with our previous ask? How we should actually reach the new investors, and who are these investors who would actually, let's say, believe in this solution to provide such a solution to the market?
Yeah, so I'll take a cut at this, and then I'd love if anybody else has perspective. But so I'm thinking right now about how to make it easier for founders to close the money that they really need. So if you already have a lead investor or somebody in your network, maybe from the previous round, that can lead this new round, I think that the first thing I would do is go back to that lead or that potential lead and get them to commit or to soft circle them on a certain amount, and then use that as the foundation of the raise. So like one of my clients wants to raise $1 million, but he's got a lead investor who's willing to probably put in like 200K, and he's got some other investors that can put in 25s and 50s. So he's gonna go and raise a $300,000 or $400,000 round now because that's what is most accessible for him in this environment. If you already had a lead that was committed to put in $500,000, well then maybe the easiest thing is to use that lead and go out and raise 750 or whatever. So I would say, like, right now, orient to the new reality with who's in your space that's already invested, and are they willing to come back in, and at how much, and build the raise around that. That'd be my advice. Has anybody on the call closed an investor, like closed new money in the last 4 weeks? Because I'd love to hear from you.
It's good to hear if there is, actually. Thank you, Will, anyway.
Yeah, you're welcome, Sammy.
Yeah.
Hey, Will, it's Juan.
Juan. Yes, go for it.
We closed our initial angel investor, but it was through our accelerator. They actually pitched our company, Analyze, a sports search engine and analysis app, pretty much to speed up research for fantasy sports and sports betting. But it was strange because we didn't pitch, our accelerator did, and we got lucky, I guess.
Did you talk to this investor?
No, they just, NextCube, the accelerator, just told me to send my, my safe agreement and my wire information. I'm like, okay, let me do that. And then they signed and then wired me the money. So I guess it's the best case scenario. But
I love it when that happens. Those are the best ones.
Yeah, I was just ecstatic, but it happened on pretty much Monday. So
yeah. I had a few of those at Kandara where I would get an email that said, like, hey, I talked to, like, one of my other investors, like, hey, I talked to Joe and he said I should invest in your company. Like, send me your wire instructions. And then I would just email them, and then, like, the money comes in. I'm like,
it's just like,
yeah.
But it's not common, but I guess you just continue to progress and ask your network for intros and to help you out with fundraising. But it worked out this time. So
yeah. Great. Anybody else on the call have, like, recent interactions with investors that put in money, or maybe interactions with investors that said, like, everything's shut down, I'm not doing anything? Like, I'd love to just source that from the group.
This is Charles again from Clean Robotics. I've spoken with at least 2 founders in the last week that have had term sheets from new leads in the round, I guess, pulled back, or a summary term sheet pulled back.
Brutal.
Yeah, it's bad news. But I mean, the explanation makes sense, and the founders understood, and it basically went around. We have to be more deliberate, given the I guess constrained ecosystem, and really deploy that capital towards our existing portfolio. And we're just going to pull back on new investments for the time being. I mean, it sucks.
That pisses me off. Like, I think that's in my world, that's, like, bad. Not playing fair. Like, if you got to the point where you gave the term sheet, like, honor your handshake and honor your commitment. So that pisses me off.
Yeah, I mean, but to their credit, it sucks. There's no way to slice it apart from that. But they looked at it like this. Well, let's handle this like gentlemen, and when things clear up, maybe you'll jump in the round anyway. So
yeah, right.
That's kind of how they took it.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Charles. Anybody else have some group info to share with everybody?
Hi, Will.
Yeah.
So I actually got to introduce myself before. My name is Mohammed Ashraf Rahman. I'm the founder and CEO of FinMob. We are a fintech venture, actually, on a mission to simplify financial products for making people's lives easier. So I just want to comment on one thing, actually. This is the fact that it's good to be optimistic, but the fact of the matter is that the certain industries are going to actually really get in shit. That's very sad to say, particularly mobility associated companies and hospitality, tour operators, so airlines. You would see actually end of the year, they would be in a really, really trouble. So you will have bankruptcies, you will have, layoffs, that is expected. But at the same time, you're absolutely right that startups have got more opportunities in order to shine in this situation, you know. And in our case, I see, since we are more of a tech company, so we see great opportunity actually for ourselves, actually, you know, excelling well in this situation. But for surely certain industries where they are distant from the technology perspective, you know, so they are going to be actually really in bad situation. So I just want to comment on that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting to think about all, you know, the companies that are going to go under and that where the technology might be up for sale, for example, where people might be looking for safe home, like soft landings for their teams. And so it feels like there's going to be a lot of shakeup in, especially those industries that you mentioned. I'm like, what's going to happen to all that technology and all those people? So there could be opportunities there for other startups. Thank you, Mohammed. Anybody else have want to share their own experience, what they're going through with their raise right now, for the benefit of everybody?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, Greg.
Hey, yes. My name is Greg Lynch,
Yeah.
CEO and founder of a company called Perinatal Access. We've got a virtual health platform for women, pregnant moms, really. Started out in high-risk pregnancies, but then we're moving into other places. But we're in a bit of a nice situation right now because, you know, a lot of people are starting to think through virtual technology in the healthcare space, obviously with everything's going on. But it's still, nobody wants to be implementing new technologies right now, so that's kind of our challenge. But I have been looking into the loans by SBA, and those look interesting as well. So I wonder if we could, has anybody else, that's I guess one of my questions for y'all, has anybody else looked into those? I couldn't do a payroll loan because I haven't been paying myself anything, but that's soon going to run out. But
I have, if you send me your email, I have some information I just got today.
Who's this again?
This is Charles Yap, Clean Robotics. I'll put my email address in the chat so you have it, Greg.
Okay, thanks, Charles. Yeah,
I also have a deck that I got forwarded that summarizes the different stimulus options and opportunities, so I can send that out to whoever wants it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I had a general question for the group. I don't know.
Yeah, go for it, Charles.
So, you know, again, we're making a robot that separates landfill from recycling and compost, and has a lot of positive effects for the environment and society. And one of the things I've started looking at recently are foundations. They make certain types of investment called program-related investments, which is separate from the grant financing.
Right.
And the interesting thing about foundations is that typically they also have some kind of investment strategy in the stock market. And my guess is that, just like everybody else, they've lost a lot of value in those holdings. I don't know if anyone else's business kind of has similar social or environmental aspects to it, and if they've been talking with any foundations about program-related investments, and if that has slowed down in a similar way that we expect kind of seed and Series A funding to also slow down. I just don't have the information on it, so I was curious if anyone else knew.
Yeah, I don't. But that's interesting. So the foundations, it's like a family office type situation inside the foundation, or a fund inside the foundation where they're investing for profit in things that serve their mission.
Yeah. So it's kind of a it's a relatively new type of instrument. So typically they make grants, right? And there's no return on that. And then they have these other instruments, which could be you know, a loan with a, you know, subprime or below market interest rate, or 0% interest. Sometimes they make you know, equity investments or convertible note investments. So because it's kind of so new, they have a lot of leeway. I think most prefer loans with low or no interest, but they will consider equity investments. It really depends. So it's kind of like new territory for the foundation sector.
Yeah, very cool. Program related investments. So I guess
PRIs, yeah. If you Google
PRIs.
foundations, PRIs, yeah. They're the definition on it is still pretty like wishy-washy. Sometimes it means like they're making direct investments in companies like ours. Other times it means that they're making ethical investments in the stock market. So they'll look at companies that are publicly listed that have environmental, social governance, or goals like that kind of align with the value set of the organization.
Yeah.
So it takes a lot of research to find someone that might be a fit. And I just don't know if it's going to be worth the effort given the environment.
Yeah, I don't have specific information, but probably worth chasing down that alley along with all the rest right now. Yeah. Well, we got time for maybe one more question or comment. Anybody have anything they want to bring? No, cool. So I think we'll leave it there then. So thanks everyone for joining. And if you have any follow up or questions, I'm Will at foundersgetfunded.com. Don, good to see your face, brother. Good to see all of you. And yeah, if you have any questions about fundraising, send them to me. And we have tons of resources at Founders Get Funded. We have an ebook, an audio course. The Fundraising Mastery is launching in 2 weeks. So we've got a few spots left in that. I would love to see some of you in that. It's going to be super fun. On Zoom, we're going to learn and succeed together. We also have a Slack group. So if you want to be connected with any of that, just reach out to me. And good luck, everybody. We'll get through this together. Entrepreneurs always find a way. So I'm sure we're all going to do what we know how to do and find a way.
Yeah.
Thank you, Will. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Will.
All right,
Thanks,
everyone. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Will. Thanks.
Hey, Will, if you could give me just a minute to get the emails here in the
Yeah,
chat.
yeah.
All right, thanks.
Also, can you send us the about the program? Would you actually send it in an email?
Yeah, I'll send it out an email. And I'm going to send out the recording of this as well.
Great, man. Thanks. Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome, Sammy.
Okay.
Good luck
Bye-bye.
with your raise, man.
Will, would you
Thank
like me to include you on this little note? Maybe the resources are helpful for you too.
Yeah, please.
All right.
There will be a community for everyone here, right?
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Right.
Get that going.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right, bye.